With Halloween just behind us, many kids have been indulging in the sweets. Yeah, it's only kids. I'm sure adults don't do this at all, but they've been indulging in the sweets and the treats, and those things just come with this season. But have you ever wondered what all of that Halloween candy might be doing to your child's ability to focus, to learn, and to regulate their emotions? Today, we're diving into how sugar, artificial food dyes, and even lighting can impact attention, especially for kids with ADD or ADHD. We'll unpack what's happening in the brain, we'll talk about the risks of current treatment options, and we'll share some practical, actionable tips for parents to help their kids thrive. Welcome to the Discover Health podcast, where we explore the power of gut health, nutrition, and lifestyle to help you feel your best every day. I'm Dr. Josh Sharp, your guide on this journey to better digestion, more energy, and overall well-being. Each week, we'll dive into expert insights, practical tips, and real-life strategies to help you discover health. Ready to start discovering? Let's hit the trail. Welcome back to another episode of Discover Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Joshua Sharp, and today we're going to talk about all things ADD, ADHD. We're going to talk about what things are behind it, what's really going on in the brain. We're going to talk about some of the strategies that you can use to try to improve your brain health and brain function. And we're going to give you some practical, actionable steps to boost your brain power, boost your ability to focus, and boost your emotional health as well. So before we dive too deep into what's happening with sugar and candy this Halloween season, let's talk about what's actually going on in your brain. There's a strong connection between dopamine and ADD or ADHD. So dopamine is actually a chemical messenger in the brain, and it helps send signals back and forth. It plays a huge role in attention, it plays a huge role in motivation, and also impulse control. Imagine dopamine as kind of the brain's focus fuel or a motivating signal. It helps kids stay on task, it helps them enjoy learning, and it helps them make good decisions. Dopamine is almost like the feel-good reward chemical. So when dopamine is working well, it's like having enough fuel in your car. Your brain is going to be better at shifting attention, it's going to be better at staying motivated, and it's going to be better at filtering out distractions. In people with ADD or ADHD, dopamine levels or dopamine signal can actually be too low and it's not really well balanced. And so to make things worse, when your dopamine levels are too low or it's imbalanced, it makes it really hard to focus, and it can actually lead to impulsive decisions, and it can make boring tasks like reading or like learning or listening to a teacher, it can make those boring tasks feel nearly impossible to finish. So it's almost like having a car with a weak battery. You know what you want to do, but the car just doesn't have the energetic push to spark the engine to get things to ignite and get things moving. The push just isn't there. So what actually causes dopamine dysregulation? Well, sugar can overload the brain's reward system. When the brain gets short bursts of pleasure, the pleasure chemical release from sugar, then it gets used to the high, and it makes normal activities feel less interesting and harder to focus on because the dopamine hit from sugar causes such a large hit of dopamine, and normal daily activities don't give the person that level of high. They don't spike the dopamine as much. And so that person is constantly seeking that super high level of dopamine that they get from things like sugar. Some artificial dyes and some environmental toxins and chemicals may also disrupt healthy dopamine signaling. Chronic stress can actually be involved here as well, or poor sleep. further deplete or they actually confuse the dopamine pathways. Besides sugar, several other factors and activities can actually spike dopamine levels and create those super high hits of dopamine that people so often seek. And it can potentially contribute to dopamine dysregulation when you're doing those activities or when you're getting those high dopamine spikes from these other things. This could include things like screen time, the blue lights and the bright lights, the flashing lights that we get from our cell phone, from video games, from social media, from binge watching, from scrolling, those actually cause dopamine spikes and dopamine release. And when you do that over and over and over again, then it can actually become addicting. Your brain wants more and more and more of those dopamine levels to get the same reward sensation that you get from eating sugar or from doing these activities. And so it takes more and more of those activities in order to get that same high or that same level of dopamine. And what happens is, particularly in children and teens, these things can contribute to dysregulation. And so your brain balance, your brain chemical balance can get way off. Um, Whenever you get those dopamine spikes, those things can be addicting. And so the design of many apps, many games, many electronic things, even some television programs, those things are intentionally set up or designed to maximize dopamine hits, to make you feel rewards for engaging in those activities or for using those products or devices. And what happens is that reinforces that compulsive use and it potentially lowers your baseline dopamine sensitivity over time. Meaning, again, it takes more and more and more dopamine to get that same reward response. So it's almost like doing a drug. When you first start, it doesn't take very much to get a high. But then as your body gets used to that substance, then it takes more and more and more of that substance to get the same high. And that can lead to people overdosing on all different sorts of things. And so a similar mechanism is at play here. Junk food and processed snacks that are high in fat and salt and also sugar, those can also stimulate dopamine pathways in the brain's reward centers, similar to sweets. So another way that people will activate this dopamine hit is actually with risk-taking behavior or novel activities. So thrill seeking or doing daring or dangerous activities can trigger that large amount of dopamine release. And so a lot of young people that are struggling with ADD, ADHD, they're more likely to engage in these risk-taking behaviors such as roughhousing, high-speed biking, or even repeated conflict seeking. They might seek out fights, arguments because it spikes and causes that hit of dopamine to go off in their brain, triggering those big surges. And so it reinforces those impulsive behavior and those impulsive patterns, especially in ADHD brains. Their brain is seeking stimulation because they have lower than normal or they've got a dysregulated dopamine level in their brain. Stimulants. This would include things like caffeine or nicotine. These substances can actually artificially boost dopamine levels, and they're often habit forming, especially as children become teens and they start to experiment with energy drinks or vaping or cigarettes. They can become very habit forming because they're seeking that to increase their dopamine levels. Certain drugs and medications, non-prescribed use of substances like amphetamines or prescription stimulants or recreational drugs can lead to excessive dopamine release and long-term dysregulation in their brain. There's also a variety of environmental and biological contributors as well. Lack of sleep. When you're not sleeping, then that can actually lower your dopamine sensitivity, meaning it takes more dopamine to get that same reward sensitivity. And this makes kids crave more stimulation during the day. Some people are genetically vulnerable. They have differences in their dopamine transporter genes, and it leads to a faster cleanup of dopamine from the brain pathways. Essentially, what that means is they require more stimulation to get that same reward effect with somebody than somebody that doesn't have those genetic differences. And then there can be chronic stress, can be such a factor when it comes to dopamine dysregulation. Chronic emotional stress and overstimulation can deplete dopamine stores and alter how the brain responds to rewards over time. So, why is this actually important for ADHD? Well, kids with ADHD may seek stimulation such as movement, noisy play, or constant novelty to boost or increase their dopamine levels. But with less stable dopamine, they struggle to manage attention, they struggle to control impulses, and they struggle to feel motivated to finish tasks, especially those tasks that aren't instantly rewarding. So many treatments and lifestyle changes for ADHD, like healthy foods, exercise, consistent sleep, are aimed at actually helping the brain heal and helping the brain restore more normal dopamine function. Supporting better focus and self control is also a goal of these different lifestyle treatments for ADHD. So, dopamine acts as that brain motivation engine or that brain motivation fuel. And when it's not working properly, then kids with ADHD, they feel it in their attention, they feel it in their behavior, and they feel it in their daily performance, especially after sugar spikes or especially after poor sleep. So let's look a little bit more at what's going on in the brain with ADD and ADHD. And again, it starts with the brain. There's an area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. And so it's at the very front of your head here. And that area of your brain is responsible for attention, impulse controls, controlling or helping you resist these weird urges that you might get. It helps you control your behavior. And it also is responsible for decision making. And in people with ADHD, according to research done at Amen Clinics in 2019, in people with ADHD, this system, the prefrontal cortex, will work differently. There can be alterations in blood flow in that area of the brain. So, neurotransmitters like dopamine, again, the brain's reward and motivation molecule, they actually tend to be lower in people with ADHD. And they also tend to be disrupted, which can lead to challenges with focus and self regulation, controlling yourself. Serotonin, another brain chemical, also can influence mood and stability. Imaging studies done by Amen Clinic in 2019, they actually show a varied brain activity pattern among ADHD, and they discovered that there's more than one type. There's actually 7 subtypes of ADHD. This can range anything from underactivity in the prefrontal cortex to overactivity in other areas of the brain. And that explains why there's so many diverse symptoms in people that are experiencing ADHD symptoms. So, what does your diet and environment have to do with your brain function? Well, let's break it down and make it a little bit easier and more relatable to the average person. Have you ever had a cookie and then felt amazing for 15 minutes? You're so satisfied that cookie was so good, moist, chewy, sweet, exactly what you needed. But then you're tired, you're moody, or maybe your brain feels cloudy and fogged just an hour later. Well, that's your brain on sugar. Sugar causes rapid glucose spikes and then crashes, and it promotes neuroinflammation or inflammation in your brain, and it also impairs dopamine function, which allows focus and impulse control to go right out the window. So, according to research from Amen University in 2024 and Frontiers in Neuroscience in 2021, food dyes actually can interfere with the neurotransmitter balance in your brain, and they can promote an inflammatory response that worsens attention deficits. And additionally, exposure to blue light, which is light that you might get from your cell phone, from computers, from tablets, light that you might get from bright LED lights. This wavelength of blue light and fluorescent lighting, especially when it happens before bedtime, it actually suppresses melatonin levels. And melatonin is the chemical that's calming and prepares your body to get ready for sleep and rest. And when you're around those lights that suppress melatonin levels, it leaves you in a constantly stimulated state, overstimulated state, and you're unable to enter into your normal sleep cycle. And that has a negative impact on your sleep quality. And that's so crucial for attention and memory performance. So let's talk about this season, Halloween, and the sugar overload that so many kids are going to be experiencing in the weeks following Halloween. So it's after Halloween. The candy bowls are still full. The candy is still stored away in the pantry or cabinet in the kitchen. And they're wanting to go in and get candy all the time. And that sugar consumption rises this time of year. It seems like it starts this time of year and then it just keeps going all the way through Christmas. And what happens is you get extra sugar. And because so many candies are full of food colorings and food dyes, you get extra red dye 40 and extra yellow 5. And these are common culprits that have been linked to increased hyperactivity, inattention, and it makes kids more susceptible to these issues, having excess sugar, excess food dyes, especially around this time of year. So beyond behavior issues, sugar actually, again, disrupts those dopamine pathways and it leads to decreased focus. But dyes, those food dyes that I talked about, they actually can trigger inflammation and oxidative stress in the brain. And so Halloween is just one huge hurdle for each and every one of us, but even more so when you have somebody, especially a kid with ADD or ADHD, that's already struggling with some dopamine regulation imbalance in their brain. So after Halloween indulgences, it's really common to see spikes in hyperactivity. It's really common to see your kids become more easily distracted. And so moderation coupled with healthier treat options can actually help maintain brain function and emotional balance during this sugar laden season. So here's a couple practical tips for parents to help you build a brain healthy routine inside of your home this holiday season, starting with the post Halloween crashes that we're starting to see. The number one thing is to start the day right. A quality breakfast sets you up for a much better day. When we eat quick, sugary cereals, unfortunately, that just puts fuel on the fire. So, breakfast that has protein and healthy fats instead of sugar, it actually helps maintain constant blood glucose levels and it helps to fuel focus throughout the school day. And some research done at the Amen clinics, again by Dr. Daniel Amen, who is a renowned psychiatrist, in 2023, found that breakfast with healthy fats and healthy protein actually helped improve focus and improves these symptoms in ADD and ADHD. The second thing is you got to try to cut out the artificial food colorings and you have to try to reduce the sugar intake. Try a test elimination of artificial food colors such as red 40 and yellow 5. These things are so commonly found in candies and processed snacks. And just find some healthier alternatives. Replace sugary snacks with fruits and nuts and whole foods. Avoid fruit juices because the whole fruit comes with its own fiber to help balance the sugar release. But when that fruit is juiced, you lose out on the fiber. And so you just get the sugar without the fiber part of the fruit to balance out that sugar release. The third thing is sleep hygiene is key. Limit evening screen time exposure. Use dim and warm lighting. Look for 1900 Kelvin or 1900 K bulbs that more mimic a sundown type of lighting. Your brain actually requires the light coming up from the sun and going down at the sun. So in the morning, as the sun comes up, there's blue light there, but it stimulates things in your brain that get you ready for the day, get you ready to have energy and begin the day. When the sun goes down, there's more red wavelengths, amber colored wavelengths, and those actually tell your brain it's time to prepare for rest. And it sets you up for normal hormone cycles inside of your brain and all over your body. And so making sure to have a good sleep routine where you use warm lighting, limit overhead lighting. The light overhead is almost like the sun being over your head, telling your brain that it's time to be awake. It's the middle of the day. And so if you can get lower level lighting and warm lighting, that can actually help protect melatonin production and set you up for more restful sleep. There's the fourth thing is regular physical activity. Activity increases dopamine and it increases brain plasticity, making it more likely your brain can adapt and heal. It helps boost cognitive performance and mood regulation. And there's research done again by the Amen clinics that can support that. That was done in 2023. The fifth thing is create a consistent routine and a consistent environment. Establish regular meal times. Try to have your meals at certain times. Your body's going to start producing digestive enzymes and start getting you ready to receive food and receive nutrients when it's on a consistent schedule. But when the schedule is constantly changing and all over the place, you're eating late, you're eating early, you're all over the place with your meals, then that cycle never gets set up properly. So structuring meal times can make a huge, huge difference. Structuring play, scheduling in times to be outside, and using some activities, calming activities to help stabilize brain behavior and to help stabilize focus can make a big difference as well. So again, changing brain habits and environmental exposures can powerfully support your child's attention and emotional resilience. By understanding what's happening in their brains and taking small, consistent steps, it makes it easier for parents to help their kids navigate challenges naturally and thrive beyond Halloween and throughout the school year. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please check out this episode show notes for some resources that I cited today. And I'll put a link down there to the Amen Clinic, which has so much great information on ADD and ADHD. And they even have some helpful courses that parents can do with their kids to help encourage healthier brain activity, increase focus, and set you up for so much more success in dealing with ADD and ADHD. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Discover Health Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Discover Health Podcast. Remember, your health is a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next week.